this is a very good looking walnut campaign chest, and it's made with figured walnut veneers to the drawer fronts and straight grain walnut to the top and to the sides. Why have you got solid walnut on the top and the sides? Well, this would have come with a painted pine or deal packing case originally, and it would have been slid in and out of a packing case. You certainly don't want veneers on the side or the top when that's happening, because it's going to get damaged. So they used the better looking wood on the drawer fronts to make it a really nice showy piece of campaign furniture. You know, if you owned this, then you are saying something, really. It would have been probably, at the time, as far as English campaign chests go, probably the most expensive chest that you would likely to be able to buy. So we've got quite a nice drawer configuration here. We've got two short drawers either side of a secretaire, and perhaps a little sign of the quality of the chest is, instead of using ordinary sized drawer handles to these much smaller drawers, they actually used smaller handles. So they just sit that little bit better on the drawer, a little bit of attention to detail, which is really quite a nice touch from the maker. So let's have a look inside the secretaire. So we've got a nice dark red leather skiver here with a very detailed tooling all the way around the edge. Really looks very smart, and that's grown to be quite a nice rich colour to it over time. Now, I don't know if you can see these grooves just here. That shows us that originally the chest would have had a retaining board, a little board which you just slid down there, and it would stop these drawers from moving around during travel and all of the contents being spilled. That's quite typical on a secretaire chest to have a board like that. It's also, unfortunately, fairly standard for the boards to become missing over time. In fact, it's more unusual to find a chest with its retaining board than without it. So in the long drawer down here, we have got some dividers, and these two would be for inkwells, these probably for pens, pencils, little desk tidy area there, and somewhere to put some papers. These drawers are quite plain, but we can have a look at the quality of the dovetails on the mahogany linings, which is really quite nicely done. Pigeonhole to either side, and a larger area in the bottom here just to slide some bigger papers in, perhaps. Well, while we're in here nice and close, we can have a look at this. Now, this is a Fiddle Gallery. It's been replaced, but we know that it always had a gallery. And this would be just for use on board ship, say, to stop anything that you had on top sliding around or sliding off. And the reason we know that it always had one of these Fiddle Galleries is because of this series of holes around the edge. So that's been replaced, but a good job has been done of it and just completes the chest. When you're travelling, of course, you take it off, fold it up like that, put it in one of the drawers. Now, an interesting quirk to this chest, which we've never seen before, it's really quite unusual, is what the cabinet maker did with the drawer linings on two of the long drawers. Now, we can see that that's ash. You know, normally we'd expect on an English chest for them to be ash or oak, but the backboard here is made of figured walnut. Now, that's really quite astounding, because this would have been quite expensive timber. They used veneers of it on the drawer fronts, and only veneers. So why on earth would the cabinet maker use such good quality timber on an area that was never going to be seen? Well, who knows? We can only guess. Perhaps it was a rush job. he ran out of ash, he needed something quickly. The soldier perhaps was demanding his chest, he needed it for manoeuvres or whatever, and so he had to quickly find something to use and grab the nearest timber available, and it happened to be figured walnut. I don't think we'll ever see that again in our life. An interesting little quirky fact about this chest. So, who might have owned this chest? Well, again, we don't know. There is a little bit of evidence on the back, but this could easily have been from a later owner or later generation. There's no military name, no rank or regiment. We've got Cunningham written in chalk here. Some depository labels. One part label from Slough here, one from Norfolk, from Dis. They don't really tell us an awful lot, and we don't know if they relate to the original owner or a later owner. We can have a guess at the type of soldier who might have owned it. Now, I think it probably belonged to somebody who was in a militia. Militia regiments sprung up all over Britain in the 1860s after the Crimean War. There was a big push to have a reserve army, as it were. Lots of local landowners and industrialists put money into the formation of militia regiments to protect the country if they were needed to go to war again, like we had to in the Crimea. So the reason I think that it probably belonged to a militia owner is because if you were in the regular army, there was a good chance that you might be posted out to India or perhaps the West Indies, a hotter climate, perhaps a damper climate. You wouldn't want veneers on your campaign chest then, because they would start to peel off in the climate. You're more likely to use a teak or mahogany, which is much better suited to that sort of climate. So we can only guess. I think it's probably a chest that was owned by a soldier who would have used it 2 or 3 times a year when his militia regiment went off for weekend camps. Probably a fairly high ranking officer, certainly an officer who had some money behind him, because as we said at the beginning of this video, this probably would have been one of the most expensive types of campaign chest that you could buy. Like most campaign chests, they fit into most decoration styles because they're such a plain, regular shape, and the brass on the wood really lifts it, makes it stand out without overtaking a room and becoming too dominant. Walnut chests are always very, very popular. They don't hang around very long in the shop, and this is a lovely example.